we 1 minute early?
1 minute, that's all right. By executive order, 1 minute early, as the board and the administration take their places today.
Mr. Thor was stuck in traffic, communicated with me.
Yes.
He actually sent me a Google map.
Yes, he sent me the same.
Red line, so I believe him. That's right. He wasn't just stopping for coffee.
That's pretty funny. Shall we have a roll call? Mr. Gurley.
Present.
Dr. Love.
Present.
Mrs. Malley.
Present.
Mrs. Mangano.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mrs. Oakerson.
Present.
As noted, Mr. Thor is stuck in traffic. Mr. Bongiovanni.
Not stuck in traffic.
Mr. O'Brien.
And not talking.
Nothing here.
Mr. O'Brien, present. We have a quorum present. Shall we rise to salute the flag and for a rendition of the national anthem? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Hang on, Mr. O'Brien. Let's go down.
Thank God. Amanda, on behalf of the Board of Education, I want to thank you for your beautiful English with your fellow well there. I want your help. Come on out here. Get in. Come on.
Right?
Go up. Yeah. Let's go. All right.
Announcement by the President and directed by the Secretary. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, were distributed by the Secretary on October 11, 2018.
All right, Mr. Sanasek, I believe in the order we're going to continue with recognitions.
Yes, we are.
All right.
It's now time for the recognitions and the Superintendent Board President's remarks regarding those recognitions.
Great.
Mr. O'Brien, your remarks, sir.
Now, as far as the recognitions go, I would first like to commend our staff again for another achievement. Mr. Isola will be talking a little bit more in detail about that, but we'll dispense with the rest of our remarks until after recognitions. I think, Mr. Isola, you want to shoot us up on this?
Thank you, sir. And I too will suspend my report till we concluded with recognitions. Ms. Galvin, we have a very special recognition tonight as we honor Memorial School for innovations in special ed that was awarded them last spring. So, Ms. Galvin.
Thank you. We're very excited to have some staff members with us tonight from Memorial School. 2 years ago, I believe, they got a grant so that they could develop the Bulldog STEM Lab, which was actually a project that was it originated with the purpose of being an inclusive place where students can come together, our special education students and our general education students can work together, and our special education students actually got to take the lead in a lot of the activities there with their students. And last year, we encouraged them to apply for one of the Innovations in Special Education Awards because what they're doing in that room truly is in the spirit of what that award is all about. So they took the time, which is a very time-consuming process, to complete the application, and they were one of the few districts that were awarded that recognition. And we were really so very excited that they were able to receive that reward. So we have some of the staff members here tonight, and Chrissy, do you want to get up and speak a little bit more about the project? Thank you. Since it was in your building and you were one of the administrators, Allison Keelan couldn't be here this evening. She had a previous engagement, and she would have, I'm sure, loved to have been here with the staff that turned this into a reality. But her right-hand partner is here, so she can certainly share some more information.
It was a group vision. Sky kind of led the way for that vision. And when Sky Donzelli has a vision, you go with it. But it was a group effort when creating that STEM lab. It was a gen ed teachers, special ed teachers, special area teachers. Everyone had a hand in that. The students had a hand in that. We had the support from our PTA, and it really, really shined and met beyond our expectations. The great thing about the STEM lab is the fact that our special ed students and our gen ed students work as a team to create such great learning in that environment. But it's just a great experience for adults to come in and work in that lab. It's amazing. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before, and we're really super proud of it. And it keeps on going because we have some other plans in mind for doing an outdoor classroom. So it's just a moment in time before the entire school gets recognized for every area and everything that we're doing here. So we're very proud of it. So thank you so much for honoring us tonight.
Congratulations. I'd like to ask Dr. Lowe and Ms. Malley to assist in recognizing Ms. Sharon.
Before I give you all of these names, I do just want to say, as a new principal, it's a wonderful thing to come into this building and collect all these amazing awards that are going on. But this staff continues to do great work. We spend most of our day today talking about new grants with a group of teachers that we're looking to push forward in Sustainable New Jersey. We'll continue on with the First work. So this is a group of just creators and innovators that do amazing work. So I'm honored to be here just to support them tonight because, quite honestly, that's all of my piece in this. And I look forward to doing more of that. They're a great group. So some people that are not here just have to be recognized. And that would be Allison Keelan, principal. Jen Stenard, who is our media specialist. Alex Zweig, who is a special education teacher in our building. Maureen Rubin, and Leonora Brad. We are teachers that are not here. Tonight we do have Chrissy Ann Escrima. Okay, great job.
So Mr. Greta kind of self-admitted here, but I'll take an opportunity to have a little humor and hopefully you see it as that. So Ray was the newly appointed principal, and they became Team Greta and Ramo to lead the Memorial Bulldogs with Ms. Keelan's retirement. And since Ray has been appointed principal, Memorial has soared. They got their Sustainable New Jersey Bronze. They've been recognized for this award. They received an Ocean First grant, which I'll talk about later. So Ray has performed magic, really. I should say he has inherited magic, but he is the most popular principal in our district, just by taking his rightful seat, I suppose. So Ray, congratulations. And the truth of the matter is, Mr. Greta, you have big shoes to fill, and that is obvious, but it is clear that the ship is sailing in the right direction still in New York leadership, and I can see the smile on Chrissy's face and Sky's face, so I know there's that great family community that you are continuing to foster, and some great news out of my report later about Memorial will continue, so we're really proud of the work that's happening, and thank you for being so inclusionary of all of our students, our special ed kids in this circumstance were the beneficiary of this fine grant, and working with their general ed peers, so it's awesome work. Really, hats off and kudos, keep it up. And Miss Keelan has it right. She's retired and she is in an intensive archery program. That's what you do when you retire, sir. And tonight was her final, so if she would have not been there, she would have been disqualified. So she elected to continue with her retirement plans, and I was proud.
They continue to hit bullseyes.
They continue to hit bullseyes. She was right. So just a quick update. Thank you for indulging.
That was great. Thank you, sir. And go Bulldogs. And, you know, I think on behalf of the board, I can express our sincere appreciation and pride in our staff. One of the things that sets our district apart is the word innovation and creativity and the courage to be able to think independently and look for new ways to assist our kids in reaching their full potential. So what you do every day matters so much, and what you do here matters so much to every child. And you lead, you're a shining example to the rest of us out there, and we appreciate the work you do with our children every day. So thank you very, very much. Let's hear it again one more time. Please pass to your colleagues who could not be here tonight our sincere appreciation and our fact that we recognize and honor them as well. So thank you. Mr. Isola, I believe that concludes our recognition.
Yes, that's sir.
So then I think we'll take up normal order of business for...
I believe we were going to do the New Jersey School Board presentation on the strategic plan.
Yeah, I think I'm going to bring that in through that. Absolutely. I was, what I'd like to do is ask...
Then the order would be exact, so...
Yeah. I believe we have two reports. We have a report on the data tonight.
That,
We'll be taking...
would you like to move that up as well?
Yeah, I think so. Can we do that before exec? I think...
At your pleasure, sir.
All right, with the board's consensus, we'll take the data before exec? Okay. But before we do the data, I'd like to invite Kathy Weinkoff, and as I invite her up to the podium, Kathy Weinkoff is our valued partner from the New Jersey School Board Association. She is our field representative who we're very pleased to have as our partner for many years. And she has participated with us over the years in many of the things that we hold important in our process, including our board retreats, and working with us in terms of meeting the educational requirements to become a master certified board over the years. Tonight, the board over the last several months has been examining the need for updates to our strategic plan. And we've asked New Jersey school boards to come in and help us kick off officially the process that we're going to engage in, which will take many months and will involve a lot of community input. So tonight's opening of that process is going to be outlined by Kathy to the board and to the community. So with that, I welcome you, Kathy.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk about it. And, we always joke, at the association, we really don't joke. I go back to the association and I tell them that I have the poster child for strategic planning as one of my districts. How has always, and I have to say, #How leads, I mean, it really comes down to, it really does come down to that because for as long as I've worked for the association, which is going on 12 years, this district has been moving forward with strategic planning with fidelity. I mean, I think that coming up, this will be the third strategic plan that I have facilitated for Howell Township. So, and I've never seen a district that really, you do everything with regards to the strategic plan. You bring your community in to help you set direction for where the school district should go. And I really do commend you for that. Because oftentimes for Board of Education to have the community come in and participate in strategic planning is really a leap of faith for the board. Because you never know what it is that your community is going to want to move forward with. And so the fact that you bring them in and you listen to them, we build goals around the activities that we do during the planning process, and you carry them out, I think is really commendable. And I think it's really important for your community to know that, you know, there are not a lot of boards out there that do bring their community in and to allow them to be part of the planning process. We're going to talk a little bit about what strategic planning is, and it really is creating that organization-wide mission, which you do have a mission statement, and a vision that really guides and directs everything that happens here in the school district. So the mission drives everything. We support the mission through the goals that you set on an annual basis, through the work that your administration does, through the work that your teachers do. And that's really to advance education for the students here in Howell Township. And really, strategic planning does answer the three big questions. Where are we now? Because that's our starting point. Where do we want to be? And then, how are we going to get there? Advantages of strategic planning, probably the biggest one in today's educational world is to really create a long-term financial plan so that you can get the maximum use out of the limited resources that you have here in the district, as well as we want it to be, okay, there's the word again, you brought it up, Tim, innovative. We want it to be proactive, because too many times what happens in school districts is we're always reacting to something that happens versus trying to get ahead of the game and be proactive, and we be the drivers versus somebody else driving us. It is, as I said, it's guided by the mission here in the district and your vision. Optimizes those limited resources, because hopefully that will help drive some of your long-range financial planning here. It's an ongoing cycle, so depending on, you know, the action plans to carry out the goals, it could be a 3-year plan, it could be a 4-year plan, it could be a 5-year plan, but we want it to be that ongoing planning cycle. Increases communication. One of the things I'll talk about a little bit later is, you know, being accountable to the participants of our strategic plan for the board and the administration to really communicate what's going on with the strategic plan. And letting them know that bringing them in and asking them to participate in the process, we just didn't bring you in and say, okay, we're going to listen to what you have to say, and then whenever the planning's over, saying, okay, we're going to go and do what we want to do anyway. But what we're going to do is to create ways so that the district can communicate to your stakeholders what's going on with that strategic plan. And then, as I said before, it is to be able to get your community to come in and participate and help drive some goals and where the district really wants to be. So some of the reasons why districts do plan is if your enrollment is changing. You know, here in Monmouth County, we've seen in most districts a drop-off, so, you know, is that something we have to work on? Is the makeup of your school changing? And for a lot of communities, those where, you know, the population is dropping off is, are there more people in your community that don't have children here in school? You know, so, you know, I always say to people, you know, I'm the perfect person that you want to bring in and participate in the planning process. My children went through the school district. I'm now an empty nester. I have a real vested interest in what happens here in the schools in order to, you know, one of these days I'm going to want to sell my house, and I want people to say, oh, that's where I want my children to go to school. And so if you quit communicating to me and you quit asking me to participate, chances are, you know, I may not become one of those supporters of the school district. So, you know, I'm one of your target people that you want to be able to reach out to and ask them to be invested in the process of where the school district's going to go. You know, some of it also revolves around changing socioeconomics, educational levels here in your school. And your school is very innovative. You've got some great programs here, but what are the next expectations? Now that you've reached, you know, this level, where are we going to go next? And then how are we going to be able to address some of those funding issues in order to keep our school moving on the upward swing versus all of a sudden we can't do what it is we really want to do. So, you know, if you answered yes, and we know with how you are very vested in the strategic planning, but this visual sometimes is really important, especially for board members who have never been involved in the process, to be able to see how what happens in the strategic plan starts to get moved down into different levels of the district, because we'll end up moving those goals that we end up with, will end up being the goals that Mr. Isola will be evaluated on, you know, during his evaluation process. And then he's going to push that down into administrator goals, which will go down to the building, and then into departments, and then, you know, the staff student growth objectives and professional growth objectives, and then it comes down into professional development, and then it hits the students. So it, you know, it just is that nice trickle-down effect so that we can really see that that strategic plan does drive everything that goes on here in your school district. The components of the strategic plan, I mean, we can't do it without the commitment of the Board of Education. It becomes the board's role, really, to make sure that it isn't what we call a SITS, a strategic plan that sits on the shelf. The board really does need to make sure that that plan gets carried forward and is communicated out. During our planning process, we will be getting information, and that's really going to come from Mr. Isola and his team. We'll be putting together a State of the Schools report for us to really get kicked off with our strategic planning process. And that's going to give us our baseline as to where our school district is. From there, we'll go through some exercises to talk about strengths and challenges. And these aren't the strengths and challenges that the administrative team thinks the school district has, but these will be strengths and challenges that are coming from your stakeholders. And everybody always says, well, why do we have to talk about the strengths? Well, first of all, we need to know what we're doing really good, because we want to be able to leverage our strengths to be able to overcome some of the challenges that the school district's facing. We'll do a visioning exercise to see what it is that our participants see as the vision for Howell Township Public Schools 3 to 5 years down the road. Then we'll come up with some goal areas, and then we're going to come up with strategies and some objectives. And then the action plans will be how it's going to take place. So during our renewal process, we're going to take it up to the strategies section. And then at that point, I put together a report that gets turned over, it gets delivered to the board, it gets turned over to Mr. Isola and for his team, for him and his team to create the action plans to carry out those goals. And then once he gets those, they get the action plans completed, the board is going to then adopt the strategic plan and then begin the action items. And then what we really want to have happen is then for there to be that communication piece where the status of that strategic plan really gets communicated out to your community. So we really want to dream big, okay? So we have to aspire to something. And we want to make sure that we're setting good, actionable goals. And then make sure that those actions then are carried out. So we will, as I said, come up with a vision. You currently have a set of educational beliefs that were developed quite a few years ago with the strategic planning process, but we will just look at them again and reaffirm them, as well as the mission statement. Because oftentimes when we set a mission statement, that mission statement generally does not need to be updated on an ongoing basis. So we'll also reaffirm the mission statement because that will be the driver of all of our work. From there, as I said, after we get that vision in place, we'll develop some goals. And then we'll go through a couple exercises to get some strategies and objectives together that then the administrative team can take those goals, strategies, and objectives and then create the action plans. And then everything gets presented to the board. And then the biggest piece is why do sometimes those strategic plans fail? But that's because we need to have some kind of a system of accountability that's in place to our stakeholders who have participated in the process. So how does this happen? Most often what happens is most districts will give an annual State of the Strategic Plan report, and that really is to let the community know this is what we worked on this year, this is what we've achieved, and this is what we're going to continue to work on this year and what will be new that we're going to work on in the next year. Other things we would like to see happen is for the agenda items to be linked to the strategic plan so that if there are actions that the board is approving at a board meeting that directly relate to the strategic plan, to make note of that on the board agenda. So that this is another way for the board to say, okay, we are moving forward. This action really does apply to our strategic plan. And then updates at your Board of Education meeting. And that can be done in a whole host of ways. It can be a written report. It can just be, here's what we're doing. We're working on this particular set of actions for, during this quarter, just to keep it fresh in our minds that, yes, that strategic plan is in place. Some districts, move everything to a Google Drive so that as the action items are achieved, in the district, it kind of gets ticked off and marked as completed and what the indicator of success was, just so it can be an ongoing living document that everybody here in your buildings can see. And then I already did go into the website today to see that there was information there already on the strategic planning initiative, and that's a good way also to keep that information there so that people can see what's going on with the strategic plan. And then it comes down to how to participate. Right now, we're currently set up to do our planning weekend on Friday, February 1st, and Saturday, the 2nd. What I anticipate, and Mr. Isola and I will talk and kind of really firm things up right after the first of the year, but Friday evening, I anticipate a kickoff with a dinner for our participants. He and his team will give their state of the school report out. And depending on how long that takes, we may start in on the strengths and challenges that evening. If not, we may end after the state of the school report and then start early Saturday morning with a real light breakfast, and then really begin the work of doing strengths and challenges, doing our visioning exercise, and then begin to develop those goals, strategies, and objectives. I also like to have just a light working lunch. I tend to say to people if it's okay for us to work through lunch so that, hopefully we can end, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. My partner in crime will be Mary Ann Friedman, will be assisting me, so she knows I'm here saying this. She would say, Kathy, don't say anything. But so far, we haven't been involved in a process that's gone much past 1 o'clock. So, but that's because we're taskmasters. We really try to keep people on target to be able to get things done within a reasonable period of time so that we're not tying you up for the whole day on Saturday. As I said, we'll set up times. And I forget which school we did it at the last time. Was it this one? We did it over in the library, I think. So we'll work out all of those details as we get a little bit closer. I know there were a few of you that really weren't involved the last time, so I wanted to be able to take time to answer any questions if you have any.
Move around. Anyone have questions? Yes.
First of all, thank you.
You're welcome.
For that little deeper dive into this, as I said, process that was very helpful. One question you talked about earlier about our vision statement, our mission statement from when we planned the action plan was developed several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that changes?
Not too often, Denise, it doesn't. Oftentimes those mission statements are really developed and there's something that can continue on, with really no time frame in place. But the purpose of us looking at it whenever we're there to reaffirm it is to see, number one, does our mission statement as it exists, does that still represent Howell Township Public Schools? If it does, then we really don't need to make any changes to it. However, if the consensus is that we might need to make some changes to it, then we'll go through an exercise there to make some adjustments to it. In the past, what happened was a few years ago, it was pretty much indicated to all school districts that you had to make sure that the New Jersey core curriculum content standards was actually part of the mission statement. So all school districts like Stanford and made sure that those words were put into the mission statements, only to find out that about 2 years ago they said, oh, well, you don't need to have that there anymore. So then we had to go back and revise our mission statements. So sometimes that will happen. So we will look at it to make sure that it really does reflect, Howell Township Public Schools.
Any further questions, Kathy? Seeing none, Kathy, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
This is a question, but you dealt with this board often enough to know that we like to acknowledge accomplishments. So, with Tim's permission, we've been lucky to have you involved with this board so often. And as an evidence of that, for those who don't know, I'd like to point out that in March, National has their annual conference, and part of that conference is what they refer to as boot camp, where it's an opportunity for new board members throughout the country to come for training on how to be a board member. Cassie happens to be the person at National picked to lead that boot camp, so we acknowledge the accomplishments. It's quite an
Thank you. This will be
accomplishment.
the fourth year, actually, that they asked me to come and participate, and it's a real honor, and I thank you, Mark.
I'd like to echo my colleagues' remarks and say that it's been a pleasure working with you over many years on our retreats. You've been great support, and you are a valued partner, and look forward to you continuing that
Thank
partnership.
you. And I look forward, you know, to assisting you all through this next initiative.
We'll continue to aspire to be the poster child. So.
Okay? Okay, that's good.
So with that, I want to thank you
Thank you.
for coming out tonight, and congratulations again
Thanks.
on your opportunity at National.
And I hope you all, you know, it's in Philadelphia, so, you know, I hope all of you, you know, if you have time, can stop by, because it's not very often that it's this close by, for people here to be able to
I think
participate.
that's a great idea. And
I believe we have that on the agenda tonight, sir.
Yes, absolutely. It is.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I think you have vacation time to be with us
You're not
tonight.
supposed to stay.
I can do what I want.
I won't hit him with the gavel this time.
Yeah, maybe you need to, Jack.
That's right.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Roger, do you?
So,
Thanks.
that being said, Mr. Isola, I believe tonight I wanted to talk, and I did. We had the privilege of recognizing our staff, recognizing one of our great students who came out and staff to sing for us tonight. I believe I have nothing further to add. I would like to turn it over to you for the balance. But I believe before we do that, I forgot, we have one more piece, don't we? Yeah.
You can come out of our report as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's combine that with your report. Thank you.
So good evening again. We'll start the superintendent's report with the introduction of our annual report of our school assessment data. Ms. Moore is here tonight, and I know that some of our team was out, and some of our teams here tonight as well, with Mr. Preston at the Education Committee, where they did a kind of a prelude to this information, so that we did at the last public meeting of the Education Committee, and tonight we'll be presenting to the public once again. And obviously, at the conclusion of that, we will open up for board, and then, of course, to the floor for any questions.
All right.
So, if
And
it's your pleasure, sir, we'll have Ms. Moore get started.
Absolutely, and as a parent, I got the park results in the mail the other day for my former 8th grader, and great to see. So again, thank you, and look forward to hearing from Ms. Moore.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Every year, school districts across the state are required to report the annual state assessment results, and that is what this report is comprised of this evening. So as we look at the results, I just want to put some things in context. This past spring 2018, was the 4th year of the park assessment for the state of New Jersey. Our students took the assessment in 3 through 8, but in the high schools they did take it all the way up to 11th grade. In math in particular, once you look at the middle schools, students take the content area assessment based on the course that they're enrolled in as opposed to their grade level course. There's a few places in the charts where I'll show you that tonight, and it can impact the way the data looks, because in 3rd grade you have a nice little look at all 3rd graders. That doesn't happen once students start to split into specialized math courses like algebra or geometry. In 5th and 8th grade, students participated in the NJSLA Science for the first time. It was a pilot year, a benchmark year. There are no assessment results from that assessment that are released to districts. So we don't have student results, we don't have school results or district results. It was a field test year. So we're hoping for more news to follow on that for the next administration. So park assessment results are reported in performance levels. Students perform at a certain scale score on the test, but that is then aligned to a performance level. It spans from 1 through 5, 5 being the highest level, 1 being the lowest. The goal in New Jersey is defined as wanting to have students at levels 4 or 5. So level 4 or above is considered being on target for your expectations for college and career readiness. Doesn't mean they're ready to go to college that moment, it means they're on target for their academic growth. So this first chart, and I'll walk you through this one a little more detailed, but you'll see a pattern in how they're set up. This one is taking a look at the district's results compared to the state results, specifically in grades 3 through 8. So the top row is grade 3, the bottom row is grade 8. And it's breaking down all 5 performance levels. So the red rectangles represent the district results at levels 4 and 5. So you're seeing really, fairly high numbers there. And we're going to show you in a couple slides how that compares to where we were in the past and overall what that percent of 4 and 5s are together. Because our goal is to move students who are at a 1 or a 2 up from where they are and continue to move students along the continuum towards a 5. So this in English language arts is again showing the results, but it's combining level 4 and above, so you can kind of see what that total is. And if you look at 3 through 8, in every area we're far exceeding the state average in English language arts. So what does that mean in terms of our growth? And we're going to take a look at that next. If you look at our growth, what this is showing is how many fewer students are in levels 1 and 2, so we've moved students up the continuum out of those levels. How many more students are in levels 4 and 5? So we want to see that constant progression because it is about growth. So what we really like is seeing in that middle column a lot of negative numbers. So in that particular column, a negative is a positive because you want to reduce the number of students at those levels. And that is true across the board. If you look off to the right, you'll see the increase in 4 and 5. Now this is between 2015 to 2018, and you'll see all positive numbers showing, that progression of adding students into those level 4 and 5 proficiency levels. So we're going to take a similar view to math. The big difference that I want to call your attention to has to do with the bottom 4 rows. Grade 7, grade 8, Algebra 1, Geometry. Reason being is that grade 7 students, we do have cohorts of students that in grade 7 start to take an Algebra 1 course. If they take Algebra 1, they do not take the 7th grade assessment. So the 7th grade results you see up here do not represent our entire 7th grade student body. The same is true of grade 8. Because we have an even larger cohort of students in grade 8 taking Algebra 1, and that first cohort of students that took Algebra 1 in 8th grade is now taking Geometry. So when you look at those 4 lines, they're not really representative of an entire grade span for any one of those lines. But you'll see we have nice big numbers, big positive numbers in levels 4 and 5, so we'll look at what that actually means for us. Levels 4 and 5, when you compare us to the state, we're far exceeding the state. I do want to point out, if you look at the bottom line, you'll see our geometry students, we had 100% of those students at levels 4 and 5. Geometry students are in our Project Plus program. So when you look at geometry results, and this is true across the state, and in fact across all park schools and states, when you have students in middle school taking advanced math courses, those are your top performing students. So we would expect those numbers to be high. You'll see as I flip the screen that it is going to look startling for the state, especially if you look at the 8th grade number, exceeding expectations 0.3, in the 8th grade number. Well, a student taking 8th grade math in 8th grade is not the student who's going on to algebra and geometry, so they may not show the same level of performance. But you'll see once again at the district level that we have really strong performance compared to the state. And again, this shows our changes. The first column is showing how many students moved out of levels 1 and 2 into higher levels. And we're seeing, again, those negative numbers, meaning we're moving kids out of those lower proficiency levels and up the scale. And on the far column, levels 4 and 5, you'll see we're moving students up into those level 4 and level 5 areas of proficiency, which is the goal and the target for where we want to be. So just to share with you and the public, as a reminder, we do provide some resources for parents on our district website. There are 2 here that are available through various sites, such as understandthescore.org, as well as from the state assessment site itself. Both of these are linked through our district website. And we have an entire assessment section on our district website that provides the annual notification of assessment, our assessment calendar, and a lot of background information just to help parents understand what a test score means, because a test score is only one measure. So we wanted to be able to help guide parents of how to interpret that and bring meaning to it for their child. Some reflections that we have had school-based groups, district-based groups, department-based groups doing really deep dives into the data, much deeper than what I just showed you. What I just showed you is like your 10,000-foot view, as Mr. Martin likes to say. It's giving you an overview of kind of the state of the district as far as this assessment. When teachers and schools look at it, they're looking way down to the student level, way down to the elements within each assessment, and they're looking for student needs, student strengths, so that they can plan and personalize instruction. So what we found is we haven't waited for the PARCC results to have those conversations. We looked at our STAR results, which is an assessment we give in the district. We looked at our Fountas and Pinnell benchmarking. We looked at our Realize 2.0 math program. We've looked at other data that the teachers are collecting when they confer with students. But what we're finding is we drew conclusions from that. The PARCC results came back and affirmed the conclusions that we drew. So that was very encouraging for us. We did see another affirmation in terms of our school-based professional learning plans, that the plans that we had made for what professional support is needed, what professional learning is needed, is in line with what we saw from the PARCC as well. The other thing that we saw was a correlation with the actions we've taken with response to intervention, especially in Tier 1, which is what is happening in the general education classroom. So once again, we looked at these results and found an affirmation that the schools with the strongest implementations, the grade levels, the places, the individual locations where they were the strongest implementations, we saw the greatest growth. So that was another affirmation. We are continuing, again, through these affirmations, to focus on some of the things that we have really invested in, things that have made an impact, and the impact was affirmed by the PARCC results. One being our instructional coaches. In fact, Ms. Losinger and I are planning a coach meeting with the other supervisors for Friday that we're really excited about. And we're going to continue that work so that we can support them and give them the professional learning that they need so that they can support the teachers. We have district in-services that are choice-based, far more personalized, and we're no longer just delivering a sit-and-get experience for teachers. We're really investing in job-embedded experiences. Also, our SCIP teams are meeting and setting professional learning goals and plans and feeding up that information to our district learning design team, which is giving us really good insight to what they are identifying about their own needs, much the way we desire to have students self-assess and reflect on their progress. We also are continuing the investment in some things that we have seen and have been affirmed to be making an impact. Some things like DBQ, which is used in our social studies middle school curriculum. It is very much an analytical, critical thinking approach as opposed to the memorization of timelines, as well as mystery science and our overall problem-based approach in science and Newsella. Those aren't the only things, but those are just some examples of things that this board has supported and invested in, and we, through these results and a much deeper dive, saw an affirmation of those decisions. And I do just want to bring some of this to light for you and let you see a little bit of the things that I've talked about in action. We have, you'll see a lot of professional learning experience going on here where people are wrestling with information, not just listening to information. We have our coaches setting goals and aligning goals. Skip teams hard at work. We're getting very specific feedback from our teachers about their own learning and what their needs are. And you can see this work has been going on. We're not waiting for state results to come back to do this. We have some of our coaches right there in the images. And we have teachers and coaches confirming collaborative planning. Again, another skip team, very hard at work. And we have two of our coaches. The coaches, their collaboration is so enriching to watch. I know Jane and Aaron and I, and Susan and Dodie just kind of like to sit back and just take in their excitement and their zeal. And we have a Delphia skip team, which has done some very deep data dives. This protocol occurred just recently. And we have our lead coach who way back at the beginning of the summer was leading the charge for us to look at observing and approaching it from more of a coaching standpoint, looking at growth. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
I'm going to open the floor to questions on the progress that I want to say. I've been listening to the reports now for about a decade. Each one gets better and better. But more importantly, one of the things that I really was struck by is the fact that, can't hear me? That's the switch. Can't hear me. Thank you. So I've been listening to your reports for many years, and each year they get better and better. But more importantly, what I was struck by tonight was the old paradigm that people used to talk about, that nightmare of teaching to the test, right? That was always out there. That's been completely flipped in this district and shown by these results and by the process that you engage in, that is the last thing that we're doing. What we're doing is we're using the park as a confirmation of our efforts internally, working collaboratively together to assess how we can best reach our children's needs. And I see the results there. They speak for themselves. Phenomenal. More importantly, what's even more phenomenal is the fact that those results were achieved through a process that is so rich and involves so many people. And when you look at even just the last piece we mentioned about observations and how we can enhance our leadership team when they're doing observations to, be more of a coach, right? Just phenomenal. So I can see the difference over, the years. Always great, but the investment that this board made in professional development has been an incredible investment. Has resulted in fantastic outcomes for our kids and for us. And that's what I just wanted to say there. But with that, I'm going to open up the floor. Board members, questions and comments?
Thank you.
Okay, start with Mr. Thor.
I was actually impressed with the numbers of the improvement in the fourth and fifth graders, and those numbers are close to a quarter of the 25% improvement. What was it about those grades where there was such substantial improvement?
So, and again, just to make sure that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I want to make sure it's in the microphone. So, Mr. Thor, you were asking about the increase in performance for fourth and fifth grade.
Yeah, those were the most dramatic increases, and I think we'll probably point to that as a success right there. And I just want to see their experiences, kind of why those two grades in particular had such a dramatic increase.
Ms. Losinger is in the office, It's all the office, when you're live, right? It is in the audience, and she can certainly speak to the language arts component of that. Just for the record, it is Sabina's birthday, so I asked her not to come tonight. But that's why we did have her out on Monday night. There are some, sort of odd anomalies, right? So third graders, it's the first time they're really experiencing math assessment in particular. And so there is some conversation in and around the state about third grade scores in general being low. But that also then lends itself to some pretty significant growth moving into the fourth and fifth grade. You also, again, now as a cohort, we get one more data view on how a child is performing in that third grade, which then we put into that rest of that field of view of data, and that adds to the interventions, the ideas for interventions that we can come up with there. Ms. Losinger, anything you want to add specifically about language arts or from your conversations with Ms. Medina?
One of the things that we've noticed is that, especially in language arts, the students really start to orchestrate all the reading skills in fourth and fifth grade. And as we transition to newer foundational programs in the K-2 schools, the students whose scores are represented here in fourth and fifth grade haven't been through a year or 2 years of some of our newer programs, such as Foundations and Reading and Writing Workshops and the K-2 grade band. So we're seeing the fruits of those efforts carried forward into the fourth and fifth grade.
Mr. President, also that's the year that they changed from the Envision to the Realize, that grade.
In the first year, in 2015. So from a mathematical perspective, again, programmatic changes that did add. We also added, I believe it was the year after that, or 2017, 16 or 17, where we added in Foundations, again, as a primary level portion of our reading program. There's a lot of heavy phonics work with the students, which would also then, you'd start to see that ripple effect take place throughout the, again, the fourth and fifth grade years, really kind of setting home. So those two programmatic changes certainly contributed. But again, and it was said earlier about professional learning, you can't just put a program in place and expect that people will be successful in it, teachers or students. So those programs went into place, but there was significant professional learning, reflection, feedback. Envision 2.0 in particular was there was a lot of different thinking about how we were teaching mathematics at that point. And there was a lot of angst around that program, and we spent a lot of time working with the staff and listening to the staff in terms of what was working and what was not working, and again, continuing to make refinements in how we implemented that. And that is only afforded to us through the professional learning structures that are in place that have been supported by the board.
If I may just further, and this is speculative a little bit, but more research to be done. We're also perhaps seeing the benefit of our grade banding approach.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Now, I can't give immediate evidence of that, but that's something that these statistics beg to dig deeper on, and that's something that I will be charging the team to take a look at that to see the consistency in that. But certainly our grade band focus and the things we spoke about in 2014 in terms of having cohorts of students at the primary level, developmental level, as they mature then into the middle years, we could be seeing benefits of that as well. So I think the big factor is some of the program adjustments, the grade banding, and most important, the fantastic work of the staff that is in the classroom with teachers and their commitment to continuing to grow with these programs, with the students, with the adjustments to the grade banding. And that's the greatest resource we actually have. And that should not go unnoticed or unmentioned, nor did it previous to my statement, but I wanted to certainly restate that for the audience.
The third graders are the first kindergartners to be through that.
Say that again?
Third graders are the first kindergartners to be through that.
Yeah, this is the first sort of the tested grade band where the children have been through that K2 environment solely. Ed committee members may recall a conversation where maybe a year and a half ago, where we brought out some of the principals to talk about their experiences in the reconfigured environment. And to Mr. Isola's point, some of the things that they shared, you know, as a K2 only principal, not a tested area, but you think about developmentally what is happening. In the testing time frame, they're not pulled to those grades that are only being tested. They're continuing to focus on the social emotional development of the children through those experiences that are most play heavy. In the 3-5 environment, those principals have shared with us that they get to focus and aren't pulled away by either discipline or more needs. So each building is, we had said this during that reconfiguration process, to be able to focus on the social, emotional, and developmental needs that are specific to the grade band, we anticipated being a benefit. That has been reported back to us anecdotally by the principals. We have some principals in the building who kind of lived through both experiences, a K-5 and then a 3-5. Ray, you were a teacher at the time, but then a VP in a 3-5 and now a P and a principal in a 3-5. So, you know, you can certainly lend your testimony to that. One of the other pieces, and again, it's correlation, right? But the correlation is there between performance increase and reconfiguration. Also in terms of RTI and decreases in the number of students going through to referrals. So we've decreased some of that number, but increased our performance. So that means the right kids are getting services, right? But we aren't, but not sacrificing performance. Kids are continuing to grow. It also means, though, one of our struggles in that work is that the referrals to CSD are coming later in the school year. Right? So some of our future work with RTI, right? So we keep going and we keep working and we keep working at it. So it does allow for other opportunities for CST members to do other work that they might not be able to do if they're inundated with those referrals. But then that inundation might happen all at the end of the year. So fewer referrals, but more concentrated at the end of the year. That tells us that we need to back our work up a little bit in terms of looking at when should we really be referring a student. But now with about 2.5 years worth of data, we're getting better with that piece.
So you stole the words out of my mouth, because the reconfiguration, one of the things about the RTI, everything, when we made that commitment to support your vision back then, the vision of you and your team after so much work, it was something that we wanted to see results that would reflect the impact of the grade banding, of the ability to have more teachers collaborating and working together, as we saw in those incredible pictures. The opportunity for folks not to be on an island, but instead to be part of a larger group that could then collaborate, share best practices, and inspire each other. It's all resulted, from what I see, in the pattern, the numbers, and those results that we were all hoping for. So as you go forward, please share that research, and if you can come back to us with more on that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the collaborative approach that Howell and so many fine school districts across our state engaged in was on display today with our visitors from Utah Bay City. And I know Mr. Bongiovanni and Mr. Miller stopped by. Mr. Miller was able to stay and actually witness how that collaboration and that data dive looks. We were modeling it for our friends from 7,800 miles away, and they were blown away by it. Their system is not so collaborative in its pedagogy.
Very different system.
But I don't know, I know Mr. Miller witnessed some of that modeling, and he shared with me that it was very impressive. But those are the deeper dives, the more granular work that surrounds some of the investigations that we go through, not only with state assessments, but all types of data points.
Right. Mr. Gurman?
Yes. Mr. Thor had noted the tremendous progress in the 4th and 5th grade math levels. I was also interested in asking a little bit about the same type of thing with the English or the language arts improvements in 7th and 8th grade. Obviously, these are different cohorts, students who have different experiences. I know we talk about RTI, but you talked so much about having a rich curriculum, as Mr. O'Brien pointed out, and there's analysis and meaningful understanding of things, and students get involved. So I was just wondering, with that area in the 7th and 8th grade level, what you might attribute some of that progress to.
So we won't waste time. Ms. Olsinger?
So one of the things that we've really been working on in the past few years with language arts is bringing literacy skills across the content areas. So we've partnered, Mrs. Fadina and I have had science and language arts meetings together. So again, going back to that collaboration, the teachers are actually working together and talking about what literacy in the content areas looks like. Kind of moving away from that idea that all teachers are teachers of language arts. That's just not the case, but all teachers can be teachers of literacy. And literacy in science is going to look very different than literacy in a language arts classroom or even a social studies classroom. But we've been having conversations about what that work looks like and how we can all support each other while approaching it from different ways. So when we look at our ELA scores, there are actually evidence statements that we can look at that break down the different categories and standards that each assessment item is related to. And when we look at assessment items that are related to reading scientific texts and reading historical texts, our students have really increased their performance on those types of items, as well as items related to literature.
I assume with that comes an excitement in learning and a renewed interest in it.
Absolutely. We really see kids bringing their passions into the classroom. You know, in language arts, they have the opportunity to read and write about any topics that they're interested in, but now in science and social studies, they're also studying topics that they're interested in. Mrs. Moore mentioned Newsella earlier. Newsella is an incredible instructional content platform where students can access articles that are related to all kinds of topics. So again, we're bringing that choice and students' interest into all the classrooms.
Can you share the shift in coaching from literacy coach to?
Yeah, sure. So also during this time period, we've moved from content-specific district coaches, so moving from literacy coaches to instructional coaches, and that has allowed our coaches to enter many more classrooms, therefore impacting many more teachers and students. So particularly in the middle school, Mr. German, since that was your question about 7th and 8th grade, we're seeing our former literacy coaches, now instructional coaches, working with science teachers, bringing some different protocols into science and social studies classrooms, and really kind of expanding the view of what it looks like for students to be doing independent work, which we used to see a lot of in language arts classrooms. Now we're seeing it in all of our content areas, and it's exciting.
And then, of course, I'll just add, and, you know, pound that same drum. The fidelity in which our teachers are accepting the professional learning and engaging in their growth has been enormous. And we've always had great people. That goes back for decades. We've always been able to attract and retain great professional staff. But the movement that we're going through, and the coaches, our teaching staff who have entered the coaching ranks, and the fidelity in which that happens, the partnership, you know, things are happening, and it's a really positive thing. Now, there are struggles. I don't sit here in la la land. I understand the complexity of being a 7th grade language arts teacher or an 8th grade math teacher or science teacher. So I know the struggles and the frustrations that surround our professionals each and every day. But the way they attack their work and put that aside, and the growth and the commitment to professional learning that we've embarked on, and giving teachers ownership in that, and personalizing that, and giving them the agency to cover our students, has started really to take hold, and there's just a positive feeling about that. And for many of you, or a handful that was with us on October 8th, the absolute passion and concern for student success, and all of that. That all, when children are in trusting hands, they're ready to learn. And I think that is, you know, we look at numbers way too much, quite frankly. We need to look at the great, you know, folks that are with our kids, our building leadership, the support that we give them, and that's an ingredient, that's a recipe. And if you take one ingredient out, that tastes different, you know. So I couldn't tell you that there's one specific thing, but I can tell you I'm most proud of the outcomes. And that's because it's a byproduct of a lot of different ingredients making a really delicious outcome, and I couldn't be prouder. So I wanted to make sure that this board understood this superintendent's respect and passion for the folks that are, you know, on the battlefield, getting it done each and every day, and then the great folks that support them. So, quite frankly, they make us look good, right? So,
Thank you. Mr. Bongiovanni.
A comment about the data, but just real quick, something Mr. Isola mentioned about the visitors today. And if you remember, the question I asked, and I said, who had been here before? Who were return visitors? And the one gentleman who seemed to be the lead, he raised his hand, a couple of other people, and I asked him, what is it that you've seen before that brings you back? Why, there's so many places you could go. What brings you back to Howell? And with no hesitation, it was the PLC that they mentioned. They said the experience of watching how this district handles that is so foreign, no pun intended, so foreign to what they do that was why they felt they needed to come back and see this district again. So again, just building on what you said. But regarding the data, it's interesting. There's more, sometimes it's when you have a second or third look and material that something pops up. And again, I was fortunate enough to see this presentation again the other night at Education. And just hearing about strategic planning, one of the comments was made was about vision. And vision is in the ideal world. If everything was perfect, if you could have it how you would want. So if we went back to the screen that talked about the difference with the math, and because of the students being pulled out for algebra, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Ideal world. I think that a challenge, and I realize this is a challenge that may not come to pass, but the challenge to ourselves is that if we accept and understand that the reason that the 7th grade math is not the number we would like to see it, because our best and brightest have been pulled out and are in algebra now. In an ideal world, we would still want to see that remaining group be as successful as possible. And that's where I really believe, and Mr. Preston, you've talked now for 2.5 years. I know it in my sleep at this point no, straight I think. Sometimes I hear you at home. When we talk about RTI, I think that's really where the whole concept of the RTI could fit in, is with that remaining group. Ideal world and vision, our challenge is to make sure that we know our best and brightest are our best and brightest. How do we work with that remaining group to see that number increase? And again, when I say challenge, I'm not challenging you to do it. I'm saying that wouldn't it be great to be able to say, even knowing this is the remaining group, look where they're at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Today, when I was able to stay for a little longer, and I saw the actual skip meeting, and to see how you actually dive down into that individual student, and the resources that you provide for the RTI, it really showed how every child is, the individual learning is geared to that child, and how they are being followed, and it really was really informative. And, being on the board for so many years, to see that, it was really eye-opening to see how we go so far down into that child and how we follow them. And, it's a great program, and you talked about the window, glass window.
The stained glass window.
Stained glass window. But yeah, it was really, because we see it here, rightfully so, on the district level, but today when they drilled down and they did the mock student, and to see that how this is actually affecting that child, and how we can provide for that child what they need for them to succeed. It was really a great program, and the skip getting together to do that for those children was really a great program.
I was going to add just that.
Even if they're great, you say they're not good, but I think they're good. For them having no experience, these questions aren't something they see on the STAR, and the environment's not something they see. So to come away with that, I think you guys have done
Thank you.
And, you know, it's funny, if I may, Mr. Miller and I both have recent graduates of the Field Regional District. I can tell you as a parent, seeing my daughter, you know, dealing with the curriculum there at her school, and knowing that she's taking to it like a duck to water because of the preparation. You know, the fact that she's excelling there is a testament that she was able to benefit from a lot of the changes and growth that we had in our staff's capabilities and the way they were able to bring that back. So that personalized learning, as both a board member and a parent, I've seen the benefits to our children, our kids and the other children that we serve. And so I know that, you know, she didn't get air conditioning like the future kids did. And she still reminds me of that. She said, what is it? Yeah, she is, but I'm talking about she. Remember, I was an Ardena Ram, so we didn't have air conditioning. But that's okay, we were fine. But the point is, you know, each year we progress, and each year we raise the bar. And each year we continue to exceed what we did before. And what you're talking about in third grade, I concur with the fact that our children are doing that well in the circumstances that they're meeting the challenge, and that's exciting. And then when you see the impact of that early focus on childhood learning, you know what they say, get them by third grade, right? You know, you want to have them. Well, look, the numbers point out that very fact. So it's very exciting to see this report, and as I said, that's why I couldn't contain my enthusiasm.
Yeah. And again, I'm enthusiastic too for RTI for another point that's been made. You get to the students early, but the fact of the matter is, as Mr. Zola's pointed out, we don't wait for one assessment that comes through the state test. We are constantly assessing, and what you're doing with RTI is constantly seeing where the students are. You're not waiting for a half a year or a year or two to see this, you know, Johnny or Mary perhaps isn't up to snuff. You're seeing where they are, their teachers are working with them day to day, seeing when they might need additional help, that little extra spark at the very beginning, so they don't fall behind, and you then have a much greater success, right? And that is another part of the beauty of the RTI.
And as we launch into our strategic plan, you know, as we go forward, that should be core center focus. I mean, whether, as we were pointing out earlier, looking at our vision statement, our mission statement, but at the end of the day, when we look at what we do, the vision of personalized learning has been developed and put forth to this board over the years, in which we have supported, and we're beginning to see the profound impact it's making on the outcomes for our children. But that, you know, that part of the strategic plan, you know, it has to be a core component of the discussion as we go forward.
You know, I think it is worth, I apologize, I think it's worth pointing out that the current strategic plan that we are now kind of coming to the end of, there is a bullet in there that says, you know, to begin to advance personalized learning environments. It's a sub-bullet.
Mission has been accomplished.
Well, it's certainly been started, and I would like to, at the risk of, you know, Mr. Stanisak often says it's the Mutual Congratulations Society or Admiration Society, right? So I don't, at the risk of a back and forth of compliments, yeah. You know, we sat in an ed committee about 2.5 years ago, where we were talking about the launch of the work, really diving into personalized learning. And the question came up of, okay, so when we get there, what's it look like? And I couldn't answer it because the truth is we don't really know, and nobody really does. When you really think about the ideal of personalized learning, taking to scale across an entire district, how do you achieve that? Where do you go with that? You might have we have a strong vision for it, and that's been crafted, and the only reason it's strong is because it's been crafted with everybody. But it's not orienteering. It's not here it is on the map, now we follow our way. It's wayfinding, right? So we know it's in that general direction, and we know what it'll look like when we get there. But each step is a new adventure, and this board has been very supportive in our efforts to take those steps, sometimes lifting our foot and stepping differently, because we might misstep in that process. And I don't think we can be as successful as we are with that work without the confidence and support of the board in setting forth in a wayfinding journey rather than an orientation.
Right, absolutely. It's about doing it, and then
I'll throw in just one more compliment. Mr. Miller mentioned about the looking at each child individually, and I think I've heard Mr. Azzola say once that he's the proudest superintendent. I think I've heard you say that once. And the thing about that really is when you talk about that, looking at each child, I can understand that because it's really the staff. I mean, I know there's some staff here tonight. It's really staff, like the amount of effort and time it takes not to say, here's how my class is doing, but here's how Tommy's doing. Here's how Bobby's doing. Here's how Susie's doing. Let's go back to Tommy for a minute. You know what I mean? That doesn't come casually or without an incredible amount of effort. So, I can understand why you're proud of this staff. You have a right to be.
So, I'll close very briefly because, as you know, Monday night was a fantastic night. It really was. And, moving into my 4th year as a board member, thank you all who were involved in this process because we made a major investment. When we talk about foundations, the Teachers College Writing Program, Pearson. But my question was, and it's been answered, are our kids coming into 3rd grade better? And yes, they are. The reconfiguration and other things. But most importantly, I think somebody mentioned the question about one of your professional developments and you asked the teachers, it's a lot. We were rolling out a district-wide, the programs that we were rolling out, it's massive. I think somebody asked a question, or I don't know how it came up, but someone asked the teachers, would they take anything away? And the answer is no. So just, that's a compliment because it was a lot. It was really a lot, but it's been rolled out very systemically and there's been support. So that's the piece. When you implement something, you want to make sure that the teachers and the administrators have the right type of support in place. And so that was something that they said, no, they would keep everything, they wouldn't take anything else away. So that's really great.
I think that's a great way.
And in fairness to that, Dr. Lowe, as there were growing pains as we embarked on a lot of that new work and providing the staff with voice in what was missing from some of that initial, if I go way back to Writer's Workshop, when we launched that originally, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, it was a difficult launch. And I don't bring that up because it's not all roses. There's struggle in the work. But I can remember sitting and listening to staff about their needs about that. And then it became something where we said, okay, we'll take a systematic approach and we'll roll this out over a period of time. And we got smart about our rollout and caught our breath a little bit. We misstepped, to Bruce's point earlier, Mr. Preston's point earlier. But it was that their commitment to the continuation of moving towards that work that we find ourselves where we are today, where they actually have embraced that work and continue to grow with it. So we're in a good spot, but it continues to evolve.
And my last comment, we've talked about over the years with reconfiguration, the data and the research, and this will make a great doctoral study for someone, actual research in the making, as we are collecting all this data.
Right.
Say that.
All right, well, somewhere out there, a future doctor just perked up there. There you go. Well, I believe that concludes our board portion. Mr. Sanasek, I believe we have a public.
If we would like to take a public comment session on the data alone, and then we'll get to our regular public comment.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Whereas the Howell Township Board of Education service comments may last 45 minutes, and those comments will be limited to 3 minutes each and be conducted in accordance with bylaw 164.1. The alternate time of the forum will be the president of the board, Mr. Timothy O'Brien. There will be open questions regarding the data presentation this evening.
Yeah, unlike normal public comment, this one is a dialogue. So if anyone of the public present tonight has any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Are there questions on the data presentation at this time?
Seeing none?
Seeing none, sir.
Close the floor.
Floor is closed.
And again, thank you. Please extend our congratulations to the staff for the incredible outcomes we're providing for our kids. And, it's just really, really exciting to see the work and also to see the benefits that each child takes away from that. So, thank you again. Okay.
Before we move on, I'd like to thank Ms. Moore and Ms. Foster for being our national supervisory staff to, make sure that our questions were answered and our information was delivered. And I know that
As always.
Precious time with your family, but we appreciate you being here.
No, actually we do. We thank you very much for staying with us tonight, and as always, you've exceeded our expectations, so thank you. And tell your families it was worth it. We really appreciate this.
At least we're on.
Letting us borrow you for a while. Yeah. All right, very good. I believe that concludes that portion of our business. We're now ready for...
Yes, we've gone out of order. I would suggest we do board president and superintendent comments, liaison reports, and then go into executive.
I think that's a good idea.
That meets with you.
Very good.
It's time for the board president and superintendent's reports. At your pleasure.
Well, I think I've said enough, so I'm going to pass it over to you, Mr. Isola. We're very, very fortunate to be celebrating all this success tonight, but I know there's much more to come in the future, so thank you, sir.
Yes, and thank you, sir. And the proudest superintendent in the state of New Jersey has a little more information for you tonight. Tonight, you'll notice that some of the individuals on our dais are highlighting their dress with pink. October, as we know, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, among many other recognitions. And, that it almost becomes a competition for what we're recognizing or raising awareness for. And certainly the cause of breast cancer is a worthy one. I have shared from this seat previously the recall of a staff member that was motivated to go for her test, her annual test that she was behind on due to a pink out or a pink wearing, and she detected that in fact she had breast cancer, and it was early enough that she was treated and was alive and working and doing well, and she absolutely credits the awareness that we brought. I would be remiss if I did not recognize a conversation I had with one of our fine board members today, or communication, and it's something that happened during Autism Awareness. So I just want to make sure that everyone fully understands and embraces my indulgence in these attempts to raise awareness for different causes, such as Autism is Blue, I believe in April. And we had folks email me like, Autism Speaks is a moneymaker, and really people with autism really don't support Autism Speaks. I don't get into that. That's not my political or my motive, my political, makeup. All I really want to do is just be pure about it, and I have the greatest respect for people's point of view and how different that could be on a topic. I don't think there's a person in our community that doesn't want to find cures for cancer and support individuals who are struggling through those battles, and that's exactly what they are. But tonight I did choose to invite everyone to wear pink because I think raising awareness for this topic is worthy, and I do believe that it is the right thing to do. But I say that with the greatest respect for folks that perhaps have different points of view about the commercialization of that and the fund raising that some of these organizations, the Red Cross has always criticized for their CEO's salary, even though they really help so many people in need. So there's some conflicting, feelings about things like that. But certainly, I know that we all want to raise awareness and encourage women during this month, and men for that matter, to go through their health screenings and make sure that they're providing themselves with the greatest chance for a healthy and long sustained life. So I'll leave that there, and I thank everyone for their fine thoughts and wishes as we continue to help hope in these situations such as that. On a more happy note, Ocean First, you remember the STEM lab that we recognize tonight for its innovations in special education was developed out of an Ocean First grant. They had $10,000, if you remember that. Well, this past, I guess it's 2 weeks ago now, we had the opportunity, we were invited to attend the Ocean First grant. We had 4 schools put in grant applications. We were so fortunate in a state that the room was packed with districts from all over the state. 25 grants were issued. I believe 10 were for the high school level. So that left 15 for the K-8 level. And Howell was able to claim 2 of those statewide grants from Ocean First and Memorial School with Ray and Chrissy right here in our audience. And their team there has won a second Ocean First grant in the amount of $10,000 to create an outside classroom in Dodge and inspire youngsters to continue to understand the importance of working in that way and the education that comes along with that. And that's certainly going to help them further their sustainable work. Dodge is a big part of that, as I'm sure you know, Ms. Malley, as our operations chair. And of course, Aldridge was able to join you that night in their success for their grant, and they're going to be redoing their media center into makerspace and all those things that we've been working towards as a district. So we congratulate them. And Ardina and Gribble, while they didn't win, their applications were given serious consideration, and they both received a $500 Amazon gift card to be used for to start some seed money to start the work that they were looking to do. So we're extremely proud, and as you all know, that the fiscal crisis that we'll be facing over the next 5 to 6 years, when school leaders and teachers partner together to go out to get grant money, that helps alleviate some of the things and allows us to continue to do seed work with some of the innovative thought processes that exist throughout our school district. So congratulations to Aldridge and Memorial Elementary Schools for winning in Ocean First $10,000 grant. We spoke about the strategic plan. Mr. O'Brien and I will start the advertisement of that and inviting people. As you all know, last meeting we named Mr. Preston as our internal coordinator. That has historically been the role of the Assistant Super for Curriculum and Personnel. And I'll try to encourage you to keep his stay at the district a little bit more brief than my last one, 5 years ago. That's all we did on Friday night that night, in full disclosure. October 8th, Columbus Day, school was closed for students. We had the opportunity to have our district-wide professional learning day, and I had the opportunity to speak to the majority of our staff in the cafeteria over at Middle School South. And for those that were in attendance, I hope you felt the passion and the gravity for the work that I believe lies ahead. We spoke very clearly about our accomplishments, took time to celebrate that, but we also shine the light on what I think our greatest challenges are as we look forward down the path, and I'll share with our community as a whole that I believe we must meet kids where they are, not only academically, but socially and emotionally as well, and it will be an absolute passion based on some personal factors in my life that has further emphasized the importance of mental wellness for both staff and students. And we must be partners with each other to make sure we care for our kids and care for each other so that we are well and strong and achieving great things because of that. So there'll be an emphasis in the coming years on that, and I hope that our strategic plan can consider making sure that has a prominent place in this district's roadmap. We spoke a little bit already about New Taipei City. We had visitors from Taiwan here today at Delphi School. I have to extend a sincere debt of gratitude to Jackie Moore, who coordinated that on behalf of the district, Danielle Palazzolo, our principal there, and the many, many staff members that were truly engaged with our delegation from New Taipei City. The experiences, the learning, the sharing was truly valuable. And it is a strong partnership that we've developed with this school district. This is their third straight year they've been here, and each and every year, they actually got off the bus today and hugged us. You know, they're like old friends, which is nice. We've talked about developing digital communication mechanisms with them to keep in touch. We have so much to learn from our neighbors near and far. So we're excited about that partnership. They'll be visiting the Freehold Regional High School District tomorrow. I'll have the opportunity to join them in Freehold Borough in the mid-afternoon, and I look forward to that work as well. So I wanted to thank the board for their always willingness to allow us to dare to be different and be brave about the educational work that we do. And I really am excited about that. My final update point, I think Mr. Bongiovanni may speak out of community interaction, and that's the communication template that we talked about at interactions. If you want, Ms. Angle can pull it up during your brief, or would you like us to do that now, sir?
Do it now.
As you please. So Ms. Angle is going to be projecting for your review. We charged community interaction for the days, if you remember. I'm not sure if it was Mr. Miller who brought it up initially, but to include on our website and in our mechanisms with how we communicate out with our community as a whole, a protocol for communication. So often board members are at the soccer field or at the store, and they get approached, what's happening at, I see solar panels, what's going on? If it's easy enough question, sure, you answer it. I don't care to harness anyone's passion to communicate about the good work of the district. But there are more detailed questions that we all get asked, or a parent can call the principal of the school before they speak to the teacher. So what we wanted to do is develop a blueprint for community members, for board members, for all of us to follow, just as a guiding principle. There's obviously exceptions to every rule, and I'm not suggesting that, this is something that is so, inflexible that we won't have continuity. So you can see the opening statement there, and I'll be emailing this out, and it will be going on the website. This is real for information purposes. We did kick it around a little bit at the community interaction, got some feedback, and Ron Brown, you'll notice those little minor tweaks have been made as we go through this. I apologize, but I can't even see this critical of that. So the first one is for curriculum and instruction. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see the bubbles, how it starts in the classroom and works all the way up to the final point at the superintendent and, of course, the Board of Education. If a parent has a concern about an assessment, for example, that they took in class, it's not really appropriate for them to be calling a board member or calling me, unless they have spoken to the school folks, the principal, or even before that, the teacher, the guidance counselor perhaps. So we want to give respect to the folks that are doing the work and have the answers most immediate for the community so that we can answer and be responsive to their concerns. When it gets escalated right to the board, or right to the superintendent or assistant superintendent's office, that's cutting process out. And, Ms. Raymond, Mr. Greta may not even know there was a concern in the building. That, they call the superintendent's office and we're grappling with it at that level, and they haven't even had the opportunity to explain why something may be a certain way. So I think it's important that we have these systems in place. So we have a couple of different avenues. We talk about curriculum.
And this is what I'd like to point out too, if I may, as both a parent and a board member, it's actually the most beneficial way to help both the child, the parent, and the staff member is to follow that, because by jumping the chain of command, immediately you eliminate so many possibilities for resolution, mediation, and satisfaction to the issue. Because I found in my own personal experience and as a parent, and also when I advised the parents to come to me in just that fashion, I sent them back and said, did you start where you should? Start at the beginning with the teacher or the coach or this or that. And when they did that, the outcomes were almost inevitably the best possible outcome they could hope for. And if they weren't, they had a process that they could follow. But by doing it that way, just from plain common sense, I think, as you point out, the children are most closely involved with the individual who's working with them every day. That is just one of the best chances for success.
And more often than not, if it ends up on your voicemail or mine, I'm going to call the school. But,
You're going to go right back to where it's
It's kind of, double stepping or redundancy at that point.
Right.
A simple phone call to the teacher or perhaps the guidance counselor.
Have the best
Those
possible.
things are resolved quickly.
Right.
So you can see for each of these, the next one, I believe.
Can you go back that?
Sure.
And this actually became part of the discussion, and we had we had the privilege of having one of the middle school VPs with us at the time when we were talking about this particular one. And the question came up in terms of bus discipline, and where the teacher really fits in here. Sometimes it's the teacher who's just going to be the first one who hears about it when the kids come into class. Because the question was raised, well, how is a teacher really going to do anything about discipline on a bus? And the piece here is really just that it is a chain of command, and it's one where the teacher may push it up to the VP or to the guidance counselor, depending on what the situation was. But it's just a matter of the teacher always having his or her ears open to be aware of, hey, I heard about something that happened on bus 17 today.
Correct, and certainly in the primary and the elementary buildings, in many cases, the teachers, the core deliverer of most of the subjects, they know everything about that child. They know what they had for dinner last night, In the middle school, it becomes more of a teamed approach, and not every teacher may know every little incident that takes place with the teacher. They know more than you would think, but they may not know everyone. So we left that on there in the discussion, but not to inundate the teacher with stuff that's beyond their scope, but just as a starting point. And like I said, this is not meant for us to be rigid. It's just a blueprint of suggested communications. Obviously, if, you know, 2 middle school kids got off the bus and had a confrontation, you know, if you have to call the school, you gotta get the vice principal more often than not. That's not something that needs to be reported. So the vice principal can say, I can't talk to you because you didn't speak to the teacher. It's just kind of a roadmap to help new parents and folks that are grappling through, who do I call for that, you know? So it was just meant to be helpful. Co-curricular and athletics, you know, you can see that is pretty clear chain of command there in terms of communication. Again, very similar, and we don't need to sit there and be redundant about that, but we just want to share the work. This is a good one. This is for the operational folks, so facilities, transportation, food service. We have this pretty number right up there, so feel free to call them. And we, on this, we included the phone numbers because they're not in your school, right? So most parents have their school number handy, they might have communicated that. But if it's something they have to get in touch with their transportation supervisor, in an effort not to make that difficult, who I call about that, they go, boom, the number's right there on the grid here for them. So again, trying to be helpful and transparent about who to reach out to. So this was charged to the communication, to the Community Interaction Committee, and it's certainly something that I'm proud to say that Mr. Bonifani and the group was able to deliver this. Ms. Angle has been charged to get this up on the website this week, so I know that her team is probably up there already. We'll tackle that immediately, but we wanted to share this for your information, and I'll certainly push out via email tomorrow, as I look at Katie Gray to help me to remember that, so that we could, you can all have that for your own record as well.
I think it's a great piece to include the board orientation package as well. Might make sense. So something.
Sure, we'll refer that to the professional learning community.
Absolutely.
Committee.
Take that up. Very good.
That concludes my report tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sol. Appreciate it. Okay, I believe it's time for committee
Yes.
reports and liaisons. Okay.
Committee updates and liaison reports, sir.
Start on my right tonight, Ms. Van Galen.
Mr. Sanzak, I apologize.
So you have the EDR.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that now. We're going to table that for after the exec, or?
Do it after the exec, that's good.
That's fine.
That's fine, yes.
The tabling.
Mr. Isola has to do the semi-annual violence, vandalism, and harassment,
Yeah.
intimidation, bullying report as well.
We can take that after exec. I'd like to get into committee reports if you may.
Yeah, and then finally, as I told you, I concluded, I was dishonest about that, I didn't. Ms. Angle reminded me, we're continuing to vet out different options for live streaming. We're utilizing different options tonight. The early feedback is positive. So we'll keep the board updated. I know that's been a charge that we've had. And this is the second month we are mocking up live streaming for our internal review, and we'll report back on that as well.
Would never say dishonest, I'd say honest mistake.
There you go.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Van Galen, anything new from the township yet? I know we haven't seen a lot of activity on that front, but.
Yeah, I think right now we're just kind of in limbo and just waiting to see.
Right.
After the election, what goes on, and trying to get a better relationship going with the whoever's going to be.
Right. So is it your thoughts to postpone the meeting with the township until after? Okay, maybe we can set something for December. That might be helpful. Your pleasure, but Mr. Sansek, any thoughts on that? No?
I'll follow up. We had a brief conversation, and then some people were busy with some other things, and they are more or less, I guess, entrenched in the campaign. So I think that would be the
very good,
more productive matter.
I'll let that play out and then sit down and talk with folks after that. Very good, thank you. Appreciate your standing by the patience. Okay, Mr. Miller.
There's been no finance committee meeting since our last meeting. However, our next finance committee meeting is on Thursday, November 1st at 7 p.m. in the board office. We will be starting the budget planning process for the 2019-2020 school year. As it stands, we're looking at losing approximately $1 million in state aid for next year, for a total of $10.7 million over 7 years. So there's going to be a lot of discussions going forward, so I invite the community members to come out to our finance committee meetings to join in that conversation. I attended the district in-service on October 8th. Ms. Isola gave an excellent speech to open it up, and then I was able to sit in on one of the staff's in-service programs on Suite 360, which was excellent. I also attended today the welcoming of the new Pi City Educators Delegation at Adelphia. It was such a great experience to see the interaction between their delegation with our students and our staff. The students did an excellent job. They went, the delegation went around to the students. They were able to speak with them. And then the staff, like I said, had them joining in a mock skip meeting and other professional learning stuff that I wasn't able to see later on. I heard took place. It was really a great thing, and the Howell Police Department was out in force with us, so it was really a great partnership there. The next Monmouth County School Board's meeting is on Thursday, December 6th. It's a joint meeting with Howell Township, and it is going to be held here at Middle School North, and the topic for that evening is social media for board members and administrators, and the new superintendent evaluations that will be taking place. But as we know, this upcoming evaluation is a new evaluation program that was adopted by the Superintendent Association and school boards. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I appreciate it, and as you pointed out, we're going to have significant fiscal challenges ahead, but the main mission of this board and of every committee is to protect and preserve our education. It's our top priority. So, and I know with our strategic planning process and collaboration we have here, we'll be able to do a lot towards that goal. So, thank you. Mr. Bajabani.
Community Relations did meet. We happen to be following the PTO President's meeting, and I'd like to really thank Mr. Bridges for coming out and giving us demonstrations of both groups about what's going on with food services and the quality of the food, and it certainly backed up what we've heard from both staff and students that they're loving the new stuff in the cafeteria. So thank you very much. I mean, that was really, it was impressive, and I hadn't had dinner that night, so thank you. We've already talked about the discussion on the chain of command. There was also a great discussion that took place for quite a while regarding how we push out our digital information to the public, whether it be on Facebook, TV. Mr. Thor and Mr. Gurman had a conversation, and I had a similar conversation with Mr. Gurman about using YouTube. Today, YouTube is certainly one of the most popular things out there, probably right up there with Facebook. We talked about how people use that. Fourth grader, somebody gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're bored, they can always pull up YouTube to see what's going on. So we talked about using those items, those abilities to push out information. So then the conversation went to content. Well, what would we be asking to share with the community? Some of the ideas were some of the information that we've used on open mic in the past. We talked about maybe having supervisors come in and talk about the new language arts, the new science programs, the new math programs, maybe a small, for lack of a better word, interview type session, discussion. We even talked about doing things just to show the community things are happening in the school. Somebody made a comment, I don't remember if it was Mr. Thor or somebody else, I apologize, but wouldn't it be even cool to show, North and South were having a soccer game? How did that go? Showing the rivalship between the different schools. So that's, I think that's going to be continued. That's an ongoing conversation, and certainly welcome suggestions from the other board members who were not either present or part of that community meeting in terms of what do we want to see and how. And again, after the new town council comes in, probably be a good idea to talk to TV, but certainly with our own facilities. Two other things real quick. I happened to go to, I was at the New Jersey School Board Directors meeting. Certainly they talked about workshop and asking everybody to attend. Dues, it is now the 8th year in a row that there is not going to be any type of dues increase from New Jersey school boards pushed out to the districts, and certainly in the fiscal situations we are, that's nice to hear. Two reports were discussed, and one is they have just released a study that they've been working on for about a year now, and Dan Sinclair, who's the current current president of New Jersey school boards, had really been the person pushing this. They did a study on the non-college learner. Now, we're a school that goes up, we're a district that goes up to 8th grade, so a lot of people would say, well, wait a minute, really, is that an 8th grade, is that an elementary conversation, or is that meeting for the high school? I think like a lot of things, it never starts too early. It's not, you know, let's talk about vision and mission. You know, if we want all of our students to be in a position to succeed, and if Tommy knows right from 5th grade and Tommy's parents, and maybe it's just, they're not going to do college. They want to be an electrician like Dad and like Grandpa. Is there a way we could help them along like with that? So I would encourage you to look on their website and look at that study on non-college learner. They did a great job with it. Mr. Azzola will be happy to hear that Mr. Sinclair also has pushed along and is going to start, they're going to start their next study for the next book, and it's on social and emotional wellness in the state. So they're putting together a panel, not just with board members throughout the state, but with professionals from a lot of the colleges and doctoral programs, and they're going to be working on that. So I know Dan pretty well. I asked him if there was any way that we could be involved in that. Please keep us in mind. And the last thing I would mention is you already heard that National School Boards Association is having their conference. I've been to it before. It's a great conference. It's close by, so if you have the opportunity, it might be something to attend. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Bongiovanni, do we have direction, this community director direction on who is setting up, or when you set up an appointment with the town on the Channel 77?
I believe based on what Mr. O'Brien just said, why don't we wait until after?
I was paying attention, I just missed that, sir.
Pardon?
I was paying attention, I just missed that. Yeah, we're gonna wait for after the council elections, and then, is that what we said?
Sort it out in December.
Yes, got it.
I think that use of Channel 77 is necessarily be reliant on the website. So we could certainly helpful to find the governing body on the other side too.
Right, I was just seeking direction, who will be the point person to engage in that dialogue, or can you do that?
I think we could, well, we have St. Gallows serving as the past instruction that presented, and maybe invite some of the administrators and staff or
If Ms. McGann can just get the groundwork started, and then obviously the details, the staff will take care of that.
Well, we also appreciate certainly more of the efforts of the staff to maybe try different ways of recording these meetings, and as we've said many times at this table, that really this meeting itself is the largest means of communication with the public interaction. We have 2 public comment periods, and this is where it should happen. There's other ways of bringing out the people.
Okay, very good, thanks, sir. Thank you. Dr. Lowe?
You saw in your Word docs, we have a new template. We talked about this at our Professional Learning Committee meeting. So for the most part, you know, we did meet, we went through the presentation, but I think what's important here is the board goals that after each district committee, the chair will ask to report out to the board on how the committee corresponds with our board goals, that we know our board goals that we have. In addition to that, we'll take some time to reflect on that, looking back at our board goals, code of practice. So we did the presentation. I had great questions about that. Our next 2 meetings, Mr. O'Brien, you said a year. So our next committee meetings will be held on 5:30 on November 12th and December 10th. And the substitute rates, we did a follow-up. That initial conversation started at committee, but the district is looking into incentives for substitutes to take assignments. The district is was looking into a permanent substitute in each building. Ideas were reviewed by the Education Committee, Finance, and Labor Committee, and found to have contractual implications that were not supportable. The administrative team is now looking into another way to incent substitute teachers in the district by possibly offering a bonus if they work for 90% of the available days in each month. The monetary amount will be determined at a later date. So our minutes were approved, and one of the other things we added in line with our discussion about professional learning, that at the end of every meeting, we're asking our committee chairs to do a reflection on how did this change, or the discussion at the committee level affect our building. So we're constantly keeping that in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Melanie.
Operations has not met since our last board meeting. However, I do have a few updates to share. At the last meeting, I reported that the food services September numbers would be available on October 15th. And I know Mr. Stanisak and his team have been thoroughly reviewing that report for the last 2 days. Mr. Stanisak, could you give us an update on the food services numbers?
Thank you. Yes, I think we've all heard anecdotal reports about the students' enjoyment of the food and those things, and I'm very happy to say that the first report of the fiscal, September being the odd month that it is, we only had 14 service days in the whole month, but the year, month over month from year over year is up about 13.2% on the total sales, which is in line with what our March projection would be to meet their end goal in June. And that was very important to me to make sure that we were on the right trajectory, make sure that we weren't starting off pie in the sky, if you will, for lack of a better cliche. And there were some staffing issues that we're still working on. They're still building up. It is a background check nightmare in New Jersey right now in all the schools with the pass the trash and everything else. So, but they're addressing any issues with line speed as they come up. Line speed issues are kind of good right now because that means it's even more well received, and it is on track and going well. We have a good understanding, and thanks to my team that digested all of it in the office, it is a lift, but it is well worth it, and the program is going along on target.
Personal note, my daughter blows through her school bike so quick, I had to rein her back in because she loves the food.
Put more in.
I want to add that the food is another thing, air conditioning that I hear about.
Yes, yes.
So,
Mr. Thor had the pizza, we almost jumped out of the seat.
All right, so end of the day, came out of the gate strong and
Yes.
on track. Excellent. Thank you, sir. And thank you for that. Good update.
Yes, it is. Moving on. As part of my report at the last meeting, I mentioned my attendance at Sustainable New Jersey for Schools workshop and my belief and hope that with district support, all 12 of our schools could obtain certifications. Needless to say that when Mr. Azzola announced the district's commitment to achieving just that at the October 8th in-service, I was delighted. I am pleased to announce that as of October 15th, all 12 of our schools are registered. Of course, Memorial has already reached their bronze certification, but the other 11 schools are now registered, which is step 1. They're forming their green teams as we speak, which is step 2. And after the green teams are formed, action steps will be decided on and acted upon. So we're moving right forward towards certification for all of our schools, which is very exciting. And as part of our efforts to be greener and spurred by a concerned member of the community, I have requested that the topic of pesticide use throughout the district be added to our next operations committee meeting agenda. And in addition to that, we'll also be discussing a district wellness program, which is also part of the Sustainable New Jersey plan. The tentative date for that meeting is November 12th.
Yes.
Yes, okay. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
We'll be fighting education for the conference.
Not very good. Very good. Mr. Garvin?
Yes. As regards policy, the committee has not met since our last meeting, does not have a meeting scheduled as of yet. I did want to mention, as with most of the board members, I attended the Monmouth County School Boards Association meeting with our president of the county school boards, Mr. Miller, leading us. And again, I want to compliment you on a terrific program. And the focus again is on future ready. Once again, we now reached, all 12 schools reached silver certification. So here again, leading in the area of digital work, our students becoming better citizens and the like. It's very, very exciting. That's a lead into the other issue I wanted to mention, and that's with the area of legislative advocacy. Again, at the last meeting, I talked a little bit about some of the things the members of the committee talked about last time, whether it be park, a little bit, and then we talked about the report that the Senate President and a bipartisan group of the legislators came out with in August, which dealt with issues such as school regionalization, school funding, and certain special education matters. Well, the one thing we noted was we want to set up a meeting with people from school boards in New Jersey. And at the Monmouth County School Boards Association, Sharon Saylor, who's from the Government Relations Unit from school boards, was there. So I mentioned to her that we were going to plan to set something up after the convention. So and of course she was there. Of course, they're very open to that. So we're looking forward to that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Gurman, I'm not sure if you are. At the delegate assembly from New Jersey School Boards, Senator Sweeney and former Commissioner Davey will be there speaking of the Pathway to Progress report that was given about consolidation of utilization.
And thank you for letting us know about that, because I know...
That's November 17th at Mercer Community College.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yes. Ms. Kleinick will register everybody who wants to go.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gurman. Okay, I believe that concludes our report, sir.
Yes. I would suggest we open the first public comment, then back up to our executive session and come out to the agenda and the other public comment. With your permission, sir. Okay, it is now time for the first public comment. Whereas the Howell Township Board of Education determines comments may last 45 minutes. They will be conducted in accordance with its bylaw 164.1, and individuals may be limited to 3 minutes each. The officer's respective time in accordance with Timothy O'Brien, President of the Board. May the floor be open. Other comments at this time?
Seeing none.
Seeing none.
Vote is closed.
It's time for us to go into executive session, sir. Please note the, go ahead. Please note the motion printed in the agenda. There is no HIP this evening. It was noted, and we are proud to say that we don't have any HIPs going into exec tonight. But we do have a topic of a non-enrolled student participation in our sports program.
Very good. Thank you.
Session. It is now time for the consent agenda, and I would like to add in A1 with your permission out of executive, sir.
Please.
So we will do the consent agenda and A1, which will be appoint Caitlin Gray to the position of Administrative Assistant to Superintendent at the salary of $75,000 per year, effective January 1st, 2019.
Very good.
Could we have a mover and second for the consent and A1, sir?
Can I get a motion?
Second.
All right. Moved by, I believe, Mr. Miller, seconded by Ms. Oakerson, third by Mr.
And ninth by who? Oh, sorry. May I take that around, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Oakerson?
Yes.
Mr. Gurman?
yes, with an abstention on 3000-14.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Love?
Yes.
Mrs. Mallon?
Yes.
Mrs. Mangano?
Mrs. Mangano, I released that she had to go to work.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Mangano left. I apologize. Mr. Thorpe?
Yes.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what we're doing.
Consent agenda and A1 out of executive.
Sorry.
Consent agenda and A1 out of executive.
Yes, except I recused myself on 3014.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
The consent agenda and A1 are approved. 8 votes in favor, none opposed, with the 2 abstentions noted for the record. As Mr. Preston throws coffee on the side. Congratulations. Ms. Gray, let somebody else get that. I think we're up.
Maybe this shouldn't be one of the episodes we put up on YouTube.
I just want to wish congratulations to Mrs. Wright on her new position. We're excited to have you, and we will miss Ms. Stevenson.
Absolutely.
I know we will be honoring Trudy from Stevenson.
So as I stand here to sing to you tonight, no, as I stand here tonight, because there's coffee all over my stuff, thank you guys. I have just a quick moment to congratulate Katie Gray on her newly appointed position, and her condolences all at the same time. She has to work with me so closely, and of course, Mr. Aylin, our newly appointed January 1 Special Education Supervisor, congratulations. To echo Mr. Miller's words, while I am really excited to launch the new superintendent's office with Katie, I can't tell you what an impact Trudy was on my career as your new superintendent. She absolutely trained me in that role. She had a good person to work with in Dr. Golden, and we'll talk more about her later on, but what an amazing woman that truly helped me navigate all of you, quite frankly, and this district, and learning the nuances of that position. So, and I know Dr. Lowe is nodding because she understands the importance of a fabulous assistant that works with you, and I couldn't be happy to have Katie fill those shoes. So thank you for your support, and thank you for your support with Caitlin.
It's a clear indication that he does not like the coffee. We need to work on this.
Yes. That's all right. We're just having way too much fun here, people. Folks, okay.
So, Brian, if we can move to the second.
Yes, don't make me use this gavel. Let's move on.
I'm sorry, we have to, back to superintendent report, we need to do the electronic violence vandalism report.
All right. Mr. Isola.
Yeah, we'll move this along this late hour. Mrs. Callen will lead the report for us as always, and she has that semi-annual information.
Thank you, Mr. Isola. We're very busy in October. As you know, we have School Violence Awareness Week. We have also recognized the Week of Respect and Red Ribbon Drug Awareness Week in October. And I know that you have been sent the activities that are going on in each of the buildings. So, feel free to inquire further about those, and if you want to participate in some of them, you can certainly let us know. In addition, the law requires that acts of violence and vandalism be reported out publicly 2 times a year. So this is that report, and the information that I'll be providing, it reflects the time period from January 1st of 18 to June 30th. So during that time period, there were 44 cases reported in the area of violence, 1 case of vandalism, 1 case in which weapons were involved, 11 cases of substance abuse, and 22 confirmed cases of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We also like to report trainings that were provided during this time in programs. So there were 77 HIB trainings provided and 64 HIB programs provided during this time period. I know that in past times you've asked us to compare. We can get that information out to you so you can see the comparison. I just want you to, and I know that we've talked about this before, for the HIB trainings and HIB programs, the way that those get entered has changed a little bit. So, and Ms. Corrigan actually, puts in a lot of that information from the district, so she wanted everyone to be aware that the system has changed and how she actually puts things in has changed somewhat. So in the past, if Taunton did 5 different things under the Lighthouse program, they in the past may have been listed as 5 separate things, and now she's putting them in. If they are all under that program, she's putting it in as 1. So you're going to see a significant difference in the numbers. That's not to say that we don't have ongoing trainings and programs. happening in the schools. They're just being entered into the data system a little bit differently, so the numbers will have changed somewhat in those areas. But we can certainly get you those comparisons. We'll ask that the report gets posted for you so that you have access to that. And then if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out. Okay?
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you. And I believe that brings us
Yes.
to
The,
second public comment.
yes, the correspondence the board has received will be noted for the record. The second public comment will start off with comments on the BVRS and then move to public comments. So with your permission, whereas the Howell Township Board determines that comments from the public may last 45 minutes and will be conducted in accordance with its bylaws, you will be the monitor of time and decorum. The president of the board, Mr. Timothy O'Brien, will report to you.
Please.
Are there comments on the EVV, or I'm sorry,
It's actually the SSDS,
the SSDS, they changed the name.
Student Safety Data System.
Are there any comments on Mrs. Calendar's report this evening?
Seeing none.
Seeing none. Are there comments from the public in general this evening?
Seeing none.
Seeing none? Public comments are closed.
I believe that leaves.